christiangeekcentral.com. Do you like games? I like games too. I like games too.
Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with part 12 of my bookshelf tour. It's been a little while. I actually had other plans for content this week on the YouTube channel. I was going to review I can't remember what movie. There was some movie coming out, and then it ended up getting the date changed, and it's just like, what I'm going to do? Okay, I'll review Samson. I missed that when it was in theaters. You know, I like to see if every once in a while a good Christian movie can be made. My wife and I watched like the first 10 minutes, and like before the credits were even done, I was like, I can't do it. I'm out. And I didn't want to come and just spend 10 or 15 minutes just, thrashing on a movie. I'd rather just inflict that on my wife privately and do something a little differently with the time that we have here. So I decided I was going to do another bookshelf tour. I am not reviewing Deadpool. I did consider doing that, reviewing Deadpool 2. But honestly, when I woke up this morning, I've been losing sleep all week, and something about my body is not quite right, so I don't know if I'm heading into a sickness of some kind or not. I just didn't have it in me to go and do all that, so I'm doing this instead, which hopefully you will still enjoy, especially since it's been a while since we've talked about some of the nerdy things in my collection on the bookshelf behind me. Now, let's see here. We left off getting into my PS4 games. As usual, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes on the clock and see how much of my bookshelf content I can talk about this time in 10 minutes, starting now. All right, Dragon Age Inquisition. Now, I loved Dragon Age Origins. That, for the longest time, was one of, if not my absolute favorite video game RPG of all time. I really had issues with Dragon Age 2 going so streamlined in its combat and systems, so as to become basically an action game experience in most respects. There was very little inventory management, and the combat was just hitting the same button over and over again. Dragon Age Inquisition felt like a step back in the right direction towards Dragon Age Origins. It was once again, like the second one was as well, beautiful, dark, and a serious fantasy world. Totally my thing. But the magic tree, the skill tree for being a magic user in this game wasn't near as varied as I wanted. The loot/crafting system never felt intuitive, managing that and crafting. It made something about going through the menus on that. It just felt really clunky to me. And the voice of my protagonist in Dragon Age Inquisition felt so flat and middle of the road, almost like since they didn't know what kind of character I was going to play, they were like, you know what, dude, just when you record these lines, just try to be as non-committal as you can to any particular emotion so that the lines will work with any kind of character. I don't know if that was the recording philosophy or not. That's the only way I can make sense of what this performance felt like to me. And so it just felt so middle of the road and uncommitted to any kind of interesting emotions that I just lost interest. I saw it through to the end and enjoyed the exploration and the combat, at least in spurts, but not always. I didn't play any of the DLC. I still maybe someday will go back if the DLC is really cheap, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was my last BioWare RPG. I mean, if they even ever make another true blue RPG, which as time passes becomes increasingly unlikely in my mind. So, moving on, Far Cry 4. I love the Ubisoft open world formula, and maybe the Far Cry games that use that formula especially. Now, this one, I really enjoyed Far Cry 3 on the Xbox 360. The story, the main character in this one, it wasn't Die Hard in the same sense as 3, where it was just like this kind of like almost preppy type guy on a vacation with his buddies, and everything hits the fan, and he just has to learn to survive and gain all these survival skills and stuff, and he's behind enemy lines and stuff. So this wasn't as much like that. I felt like my character was more capable from the get-go, and so that I missed a little bit. But really, I don't play these games for the story. I play them for the freedom of the open world and to explore it and do kinds of crazy stuff in it and all the different weapons and the vehicles and stuff. And I love taking down outposts. That's just my favorite thing to do. If this game was nothing but taking down outposts, I would be content to not have any story at all. I just love going in and whittling down the numbers through stealth as long as I can, or through sniping, and then I go in guns blazing, to finish off the outpost. That is just like a formula that never gets old for me. I hated the timed missions that were not often, but that were regularly or sporadically at least part of the story. So in order to progress through the game, in order to unlock the full map of the game and to have access to the entire world that you can explore, you have to do the story missions, and some of them were timed. So if you didn't do something in a certain amount of time, insta-fail. Or they were insta-fail stealth missions where if you are seen at any time during this mission, instant failure. And I hate that. I hate that kind of game design because I have no patience for going back and repeating material that I've already played. And since I'm a crappy player, that means that's going to happen to me pretty frequently in games that are designed like that. And so I just usually avoid those kinds of games altogether. Thankfully, what I've seen in Ghost Recon Wildlands, and now as I'm playing through Far Cry, did I say Far Cry? Yeah, Far Cry 5, yeah. And now as I'm playing through Far Cry 5, I'm seeing that they're leaning on those things a lot less. But anyway, there is still some frustrating bits of those kinds of missions going on in Far Cry 4. I also really hate the dream missions or the drug-induced missions or whatever that basically give you whole different rules to operate. It's like, okay, we're taking away your equipment and we're taking away some of the skills that you normally have access to, and now you have to get through this scenario with all these handicaps. And I'm just like, that is crappy. The whole reason I spend time going around and grinding in the open world is to compensate for my crappy action skills, and now you're taking away the stuff that I grinded for in order to compensate for my crappy skills and asking me to take on this situation here and with insta-fail conditions or whatever. So there were definitely some very annoying aspects of Far Cry 4 in the story missions department. There were some optional missions that were also timed or insta-fail or whatever, but I just skipped those and just did the stuff that wasn't annoying like that. So really, broadly speaking, really loved Far Cry 4 a lot. Next game up, Far Cry Primal. Hey, more Far Cry. Kind of. I love the nature vibe. I really hate nature. Nature hates me too, I think, and we just don't get along, and I don't like bugs, and I don't like all outdoorsy things and bad, too hot, too cold, just leave me inside with air conditioning and video games or movies, and I'll just have a simulated version of nature. I do like that. And so I love the nature vibe and exploring going through foliage and stuff and all the different... They do such a great job in the Far Cry games of recording and implementing Foley sounds. So as your boots are crunching or as you're pushing through big, thick leaves and branches and stuff, I just love all those kinds of atmospheric sound effects that they incorporate so well into these games. And so having more of that was wonderful. And it was a different flavor. It was all prehistoric, with no modern weapons. And so that was kind of cool. It was a nice flavor for a while. But I did, after a time, miss the guns a bit and wanted to go back. I was like, okay, where's the guns? But I did finish it. I did play it through to the end. I am still going back now and then and doing the whole collectathon thing where you just crisscross around the map and try to get as much stuff as you can. I just love moving around and traversing in these worlds and all the kind of random situations that might happen because tribesmen are attacking, or a crazy animal is attacking, or a bird comes down from the sky and is attacking, all that kind of stuff. Boy, water makes me nervous in these games, though. Far Cry 3, 4, and I think Primal had some when you go in the water, there'd be like fishes or something that would bite you, and so that's very intimidating. I was glad that you can swim freely without fear of harm in Far Cry 5. But anyway, man, really enjoyed the Far Cry games, and Far Cry Primal was not an exception to that, despite ultimately missing some of the things that I really enjoy about the main series. Okay, God of War 3. Now, after the God of War reboot was announced, I don't know however many years ago, I decided I was going to go back and play this series from the beginning, and I really enjoyed most of the first one and about half of the second one. When playing through those again, I remembered, oh, you know what? When I played these on the PS2 the first time, I eventually fell back on cheat codes to get through the dumb spike levels and instant death things, you know, that were frequent in the first game and that also came back to some degree in the second game. You know, you have the Medusas that come out. If they turn you to stone and then you get whacked once, I think just maybe one time you get whacked while you are stone, boom, instant kill, you know. I hate stuff like that. And really the puzzle started grating on me. Those elements were actually reduced in the handheld iterations of the series. I think Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. And so I really enjoyed playing those on my Vita and my PlayStation TV. But by the time I was playing them kind of in chronological order instead of order of release. By the time I got to God of War 2, I got halfway through and I was like, you know what, I'm done. It was the puzzles that ultimately I just had no patience for, as I'm not interested in this. I don't want to have to, every other level, pull up some YouTube video because I don't feel like thinking my way through a dumb puzzle or pushing and pulling another block or trying to avoid a timed spike room or something like that. So I haven't even started playing God of War 3. For the longest time, it was in shrink wrap on my shelf. Eventually, it did come out of shrink wrap. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to play it. It's kind of in my mental sell pile right now, so I don't know if I'll get to it ever or not. One game I did get to, though, and really enjoyed was Horizon Zero Dawn, which is next on the shelf. Really enjoyed the gameplay here. It was clearly borrowing some things from Assassin's Creed. It was kind of like an Assassin's Creed RPG before Assassin's Creed Origins came out. And it had a touch of Monster Hunter, which I didn't know because I wasn't familiar with the Monster Hunter series, but they were taking inspiration from those games and just had a very light implementation of that kind of gameplay in this, where you have to look at where each enemy, there's very few enemies that are like fodder, and most of them really you have to think about how you're going to approach them on a case-by-case basis, do some prep, get the right equipment and weapons out and the right kind of elemental, offensive buffs and stuff. And so I really wasn't sure if I was going to like that kind of gameplay. I definitely played it on easy, as I do in almost every game that I play, because I just suck at hand-eye coordination. But I found that I did really enjoy the game, and it had a great blend of sci-fi and fantasy, so that the setting was unusual, and that was great. There were some boss battles that for me were a little too long or frustrating, but I loved the open world exploring and looting and crafting. There's the timer, so this will be the last one I talk about. The creatures were visually unique and conceptually unique, and the setting as well, being a post-apocalyptic setting. And the one thing that's kind of like eye-rolling for me about Horizon Zero Dawn is that it has a heavy, I think, naturalistic or atheistic philosophical influence in the writing of the story. Very kind of anti-religious, and the writing also has like maybe some liberal social causes kind of thrown in, and that stuff, it doesn't like make me like, I can't play this or whatever, but I think what exacerbated the situation was that Aloy, the main character, she has a big chip on her shoulder because she was mistreated growing up by some religious people in her world, and it left her with this just big, bitter chip on her shoulder and kind of like some arrogance. She just came across as this prideful, arrogant, and really unfortunate voice representing those viewpoints. It's not that I support those viewpoints, but I'd still like the representation of them to not be clouded by this character that I find kind of abrasive, I really would like a new hero in the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn that they are undoubtedly working on, or an anti-hero. I mean, I would love to play Silence, in the guy that's kind of like giving her some counsel and stuff, but has dubious motives that you're not kind of quite sure about, I would love to play as Silence in the next Horizon Zero Dawn game. I really doubt they're going to let me do that. But anyway, all right, that's all the time I have for this section of my bookshelf tour. Next time we're going to be looking at Injustice: Gods Among Us, Saints Row 4, Scribblenauts Unlimited, as we get into some of my PC games. So anyway, I look forward to sharing that with you. In the meantime, I hope you'll join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Bye-bye. Hey, just a reminder that this humble little YouTube channel is so dependent on people just like you. There are 3 main ways you can support this channel, and they're all over at spiritblade.com. The first is to purchase one of our sci-fi or fantasy audio dramas. Second is to give us a donation of any amount. And third, you can become a Spirit Blade insider and get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes monthly goodies. You can get more information on our About page over at spiritblade.com. Thanks so much.